What if two people who consider themselves experts in love suddenly become victims of their own games? This is a story about how easy it is to lose yourself behind masks, and how hard it is to dare to be real. Are you ready to find out what's hidden behind perfect advice and witty lines? Stay with us. A modern drama about love, mistakes, and second chances is about to begin. Love Guru. Friday night in London was just as glossy magazines love to describe it. The city sparkled with lights, and the air was filled with the anticipation of something new. Grace stood by the penthouse window, gazing at her reflection in the glass. She tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear, sighed, and turned to her friends. "So girls, who are we going to teach a lesson tonight?" she asked with a smile. Grace was well known for her love blog, where under the pseudonym Mr. Black, she gave relationship advice, exposed men's tricks, and taught women to be strong. She was sure no one could outsmart her. "That one in the blue jacket," Alice whispered, nodding toward a tall guy at the bar. "Way too confident. You can tell he's a player right away." Grace squinted. The guy was indeed attractive. Dark hair, a confident smile, a gaze that seemed to scan the room. He noticed her looking and, without breaking eye contact, raised his glass. "Too easy," Grace smirked. "He's not even trying to hide that he's hunting for a target." "What if it's not him choosing you but you choosing him?" Alice winked. At that moment the guy's friends approached him. One of them said something, and they all looked at Grace. She felt a spark of excitement awaken inside her. Leo was the one his friends called the love guru. His advice spread among them like wildfire, and even people who barely knew him discussed his romantic escapades. He didn't believe in love, only in the game where the winner is the one who leaves first. "Look, Leo," said his friend Max, "there's your challenge for tonight. The blonde by the window. Think you can do it?" Leo glanced around the room and locked eyes with Grace. She didn't look away. Instead, she smiled as if inviting him to a duel. "Easy," Leo replied, though he felt a strange flutter inside. He walked over to her, casually leaning against the bar nearby. "You look like you're bored here," he said, pretending he'd just noticed her. Grace laughed. "And you look like you practiced that line in front of the mirror." Leo hadn't expected that. Usually girls blushed or started flirting. But not her. "Maybe you can tell me what works better," he persisted. "You want me to give you pickup advice?" Grace raised an eyebrow. "For free. I'm willing to pay with dinner," Leo smiled. "Too cliché," she shot back, though there was a glint of interest in her eyes. The game had begun. The party went on, but Grace and Leo no longer noticed the music or the conversations around them. Their dialogue was like a chess match, every move calculated, every word with a double meaning. "Do you always cut through clichés so quickly?" Leo asked, taking a sip of wine. "Only if I want my conversation partner to show some imagination," Grace replied, tilting her head. "And what if I say I'm interested in you not as just another target, but as a person? Then I'd say that's your second cliché of the evening." She smirked. Leo laughed. He liked her boldness. He wasn't used to being seen through so quickly. "All right," he said. "Let's play a game. If you guess what I do for a living, I'll buy you dinner. If not, you'll invite me." Grace looked him over appraisingly. "You're either a consultant or a startup guy. Too confident to be an office worker, too relaxed to be a banker." Leo was surprised by her insight. "Close. I consult for startups," he admitted. "So dinner's on you," Grace concluded. "Only if you agree," Leo smiled. At that moment Alice approached them. "Grace, we're leaving. Are you coming?" Grace glanced at Leo. "I think I'll pass tonight," she said, winking at him before leaving with her friends. Leo watched her go, feeling that this game was only just beginning. The next day, Grace went to her company's corporate event. She didn't like such gatherings, but she had to show up. The room was noisy, everyone discussing the latest news, and Grace was mentally planning how to leave early. Suddenly, she noticed a familiar figure at the drinks counter. Leo. He was talking to one of her colleagues, laughing, gesturing animatedly. Grace felt something click inside her. Irritation or maybe interest. Leo turned and noticed her. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, walking up to Grace. "Me neither," Grace replied. "Are you stalking me now?" "More like fate decided to give us another round," Leo grinned. They stepped outside together to get some fresh air. It was chilly, but Grace didn't feel the cold. "Let's grab dinner?" Leo suggested. "Only if you don't use your signature moves," she warned. "And if I do? Then I'll make fun of you," Grace smiled. They went to a small cafe nearby. Leo told stories from his life, trying to impress her. But Grace caught him on every cliché. "Do you really think those lines work?" she asked when he tried to compliment her eyes for the third time. "Usually yes," Leo admitted honestly. "Then you need to update your arsenal," Grace laughed. The waitress brought menus, and without looking, Grace handed hers to Leo. "Go ahead, surprise me," she said, folding her arms. "Are you sure?" Leo raised an eyebrow. "I might order something totally unexpected. Like snails." "If you order snails, I'll have to roast you on my blog," Grace retorted. Leo laughed and ordered pasta for her, risotto for himself, and 2 glasses of white wine. "Do you always take the initiative so quickly?" Grace asked when the waitress left. "Only if I feel I might lose," Leo replied, looking at her intently. "So you already feel threatened?" she smiled. "I'd say you're a worthy opponent. Usually girls fall for my stories." "I'm not usual," Grace noted. "I've noticed," Leo nodded. "But I'll still try." He started telling a story about how he once ended up on a yacht in Greece and almost lost his passport while saving a kitten. Grace listened, but at some point she raised her hand to stop him. "Wait," she said. "That's classic. Exotic location, heroism, animals. Do you practice these in front of the mirror?" Leo pretended to be offended. "You're ruining the magic of the moment," he said. "I just don't like fairy tales," Grace shrugged. "Tell me something real. Like your most awkward date." Leo thought for a moment, then smiled. "All right. There was one. I invited a girl to a restaurant and she turned out to be vegan and I wasn't. I wanted to order steak, and she spent the whole evening telling me about the evils of meat. In the end, I left hungry and guilty." Grace laughed. "Now that's more like real life. I once escaped a dinner through the bathroom window because the guy started reading me his own poetry. Really bad poetry." "You're ruthless," Leo shook his head. "I'm honest," Grace corrected him. They laughed, exchanged jokes, debated movies and music. Every time Leo tried another move, complimenting her, touching her hand, Grace caught him and turned it into a joke. "You know," he said when dessert arrived, "with you I'm not sure I'll win for the first time. Maybe because this isn't a game?" Grace replied quietly. They fell silent, and in that silence, there was more meaning than in all their words that evening. Leo looked at her differently, without the mask, without bravado. Grace smiled, feeling for the first time that she didn't need to defend herself. "Thanks for dinner," she said, getting up from the table. It was unusual. That evening they didn't get physically closer, but something new emerged between them. Genuine interest, a desire to truly get to know each other. The next day, during her lunch break, Grace met her friends at their favorite cafe on the corner. The usual atmosphere reigned at the table. The aroma of coffee, the clinking of spoons, quiet laughter, and whispered secrets. Alice, as always, arrived first, followed by Maya, a colleague Grace had recently grown closer to. "So, girls, any news?" Alice asked, pouring water into their glasses. Maya looked distracted and tired. She poked at her salad with a fork, not looking up. "Maya, you're not yourself today," Grace noticed. "What's wrong?" Maya sighed, and a hint of hurt flashed in her eyes. "It's just, I feel stupid. I met a guy last week, everything was great, he was attentive, funny. We spent the night together and then he just disappeared. Doesn't answer my messages, won't pick up the phone. I don't even know what to think." "You actually called him after that?" Grace couldn't help but ask. "5 times, Maya replied. Alice shook her head sympathetically, and Grace, slipping into her usual advisor role, took charge. "Maya, listen," she began gently. "I know it hurts right now, but honestly, it's not worth getting upset over. Don't text him, don't call him. If a guy disappears after a night together, it says more about him than about you. Don't hum. Продолжи перевод. Of course. Here is the continuation of your translation. Idiot yourself." Maya gave a weak smile. "I just thought we might have something. This has never happened to me before." He seemed so genuine. "You know it's your first time, but he probably thinks you always act this way. So you're on his side?" Maya protested. "Try to understand, Maya," Grace interrupted her. "They're all genuine at first. But if a man disappears, he's not worth your time. And honestly, don't sleep with a guy on the first night. It's not about morals, it's about self-respect. Let him prove he's interested in more than just a night." Alice nodded. "Grace is right. You always know what's best." Grace felt a pang inside. She remembered her dinner with Leo, their game, his sincerity, and suddenly wondered, do her own rules always work? But she didn't say it out loud. "Maya," she continued, "the best thing you can do now is focus on yourself. Go for a walk, see a movie, work out. Don't give him power over your mood. And most importantly, don't text him another word." Maya nodded, wiping away tears. Few weeks passed. Grace and Leo kept running into each other at loud parties, in coffee shops, or texting late into the night. Their relationship was like a dance. A step forward, a step back, and neither wanted to be the first to admit their feelings. One evening, as Grace sat by the window scrolling through her news feed, a message from Leo popped up on her phone. "Want to see a place where I'm truly myself?" She smiled, picturing his mischievous grin and squinting eyes. "Does such a place exist?" she replied. "Yes," Leo answered. "Have you ever been to Edinburgh?" "No." "Why?" she replied, trying to sound nonchalant. A minute later, another message arrived. "I'm going there for the weekend. I want to show you the city that changed me. Will you agree to a little adventure?" Grace hesitated. She wasn't used to spontaneous trips, especially with a man she'd only known for a couple of weeks. But to refuse would be to admit she was scared. And she wasn't about to lose in their game. Or maybe she just wanted to escape herself, the love guru image she'd so carefully built. Maybe she just wanted to really get to know Leo. "Are you sure you can handle me for 2 whole days?" she wrote back. "Is that a challenge?" Leo replied instantly. "Consider it one," Grace sent, feeling a spark of excitement inside. On Friday evening, they met at the train station. "You're sure you haven't changed your mind?" he asked as the train was about to depart. "I'm not the type to back down," Grace replied, trying not to show her nerves. "Then get ready," Leo smiled. "Edinburgh knows how to surprise." They took seats by the window. London's lights flashed by outside. And inside the carriage there was an air of anticipation. Leo told her about his student years, about how he first came to the city and fell in love with its dark beauty. "Why Edinburgh?" Grace asked as the train picked up speed. "That's where I feel like myself," Leo admitted. "It's a place where I can be real. I want you to see the city through my eyes." Grace nodded, pretending not to be touched by his words. In truth, she felt something new growing between them, not just a game but trust. "We'll see if you can surprise me," she teased. Leo laughed. "Consider that my trump card." They chatted the whole way, debated music, shared childhood stories. When the train arrived in Edinburgh, the city greeted them with cool air and the scent of rain. Leo took Grace's hand, and for the first time she didn't pull away, allowing herself to be not just a rival, but a woman curious about what would happen next. Leo rented a car and they drove through the old streets. Behind the wheel, Leo was different, calm, attentive, almost homely. He showed her places from his childhood, told stories about adventures with friends. "This is where I first learned what it means to be alone," he said one evening as they sat on a rooftop, looking at the stars. Grace was silent. She sensed he was about to reveal something important. "My mom left when I was 6, Leo said quietly. "She just never came back. My dad was sick for a long time and then he was gone. I stayed here with my grandmother. My mom didn't even come to the funeral." He spoke calmly, but Grace could hear the pain he usually hid behind jokes and a confident mask. "Are you angry at her?" she asked. Sometimes. Sometimes I pity her. Sometimes I think all of this made me who I am." For the first time, Grace saw Leo not as a player, not as a game master, but as a man who could love, but was afraid of being rejected. "I'm sorry I judged you by your appearance," she said. "I thought I knew guys like you. Turns out I knew nothing." Leo looked at her and for the first time didn't smile, he just nodded. "You're not like the others either, Grace." That night, they sat together in silence for a long time. They didn't need words. Something more than a game had grown between them. The next day, Grace saw Leo interacting with neighbors. He was real here without masks. She realized her stereotypes were crumbling, and with them her defenses. The days flew by. They joked, laughed until they cried, shared stories and seemed to forget about the game they once started. Returning to London felt like a rude awakening. The city greeted them with noise, rush, endless tasks. Grace became the love guru for her followers again, and Leo, the confident consultant who always knew what to say. But something had changed. They started seeing each other more often, but now their conversations were different. Deeper, more honest, sometimes even vulnerable. Grace caught herself waiting for Leo's messages and he, for her glance in a crowd. One evening, as Grace was writing another blog post, she paused. Memories of Edinburgh, of what Leo was like there. Far from London and prying eyes, spun in her mind. For the first time, she decided to tell her followers not about tricks and tactics, but about real feelings. Grace wrote, "Sometimes we meet someone who breaks all our patterns. He's not perfect, doesn't always say what you want to hear, but with him for the first time you don't want to play. I call him Mr. L. And maybe for the first time I don't know how this story will end." The post went viral. Followers speculated about who Mr. L was, built theories, left comments. Grace felt on edge. She wanted to hide, but at the same time, for the first time, she was honest not only with her audience but with herself. Leo knew nothing about the blog. For him, Grace was just Grace. Smart, beautiful, a little ironic, and unafraid to speak the truth. One evening, Leo invited Grace to his place. He spent a long time preparing dinner, choosing wine, even lighting candles, though he usually laughed at such gestures. "You're different tonight," Grace noticed as they sat down. I just want this evening to be special, Leo admitted. They talked about everything. Childhood fears, how hard it is to be yourself in a world where everyone expects you to play a role. After dinner, they didn't rush into each other's arms, didn't hurry to passion. Instead, their conversation grew even deeper and more sincere. I don't know what's happening to me, Leo said. I always thought I could control my feelings. But with you, it's different. Grace was silent, but her eyes said the same. That night, for the first time, they truly opened up to each other. No masks, no games, no fear of being vulnerable. The next morning, Grace woke up feeling that everything had changed. She looked at Leo sleeping beside her, and for the first time in a long while felt happy. Then she glanced at the clock and realized she was late for work. She quickly grabbed her things and rushed out of the apartment. Outside, she hailed a taxi and 15 minutes later was at the office. The morning at work flew by. During her lunch break, as usual on Tuesdays, Grace met her friends at a cozy cafe. The conversation quickly turned to men and relationships. You're still seeing that Leo guy, right? Alice asked, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. Yes, Grace smiled. And you know it's different with him. Alice sighed, looked at her friend with a long, searching gaze and finally spoke. Remember how Maya was upset about that guy who disappeared after one night? Grace nodded, recalling that lunch and her confident advice. I didn't know who it was then, Alice continued. But yesterday we met up, and she showed me his photo. And what's so special about it? Grace asked, puzzled. It's Leo. The words hung in the air, as if someone had suddenly turned off the music. Grace felt something tighten inside her. Are you sure? She asked, hoping it was a mistake. Absolutely, Alice nodded. She didn't know you were seeing him. She just showed me the photo so I wouldn't fall for someone like that. I recognized him right away. Grace leaned back in her chair, trying to process what she'd heard. Memories flashed in her mind. Their dinner, their trip to Edinburgh, his sincere eyes, his stories. Suddenly, everything began to feel less real. I don't know what to say, she whispered. I didn't want to tell you, Alice added quietly. But you needed to know. Just be careful, okay? Grace nodded, feeling a growing bitterness and anger in her chest. At Leo, at herself, at the whole ridiculous game she'd gotten so caught up in. That evening, Grace returned home and without hesitation, wrote a new post on her blog. She didn't mention any names, but described the situation so that everyone understood who she was talking about. She accused Mr. L of insincerity, of using people and leaving them when he got bored. The post spread across the internet. Her followers split into two camps. Some supported Grace, others defended Mr. L. Leo found out about the post by accident. His friend sent him the link. He couldn't believe that Grace, the very Grace he'd been honest with, had written such things. He immediately realized it was about him. He tried to call her, but she didn't answer. The scandal began to escalate. The consequences became irreversible. Everyone soon learned that the mysterious Mr. L was, in fact, Leo. Grace was called in by her boss, a woman who had long harbored unrequited feelings for Leo. You do realize your blog is the face of the company, she said coldly. After such a scandal, I can't keep you in your position. Grace was fired. Leo, in turn, became an outcast in professional circles. His name was now associated with public disgrace, and even on the street he felt the weight of judgmental stares. Grace shut down her blog. She realized she no longer wanted to live for show, no longer wanted to be a hostage to others' expectations. For the first time in a long while, she was left alone with no likes, no comments, no advice. Silence fell, a silence she wasn't prepared for. Mornings began without the usual notifications, without urgent emails. For the first time in ages, she could simply listen to the ticking of the clock and the sound of rain outside her window. But this silence was not peaceful. It was heavy and oppressive. Leo tried to reach her almost every day. He came to her house, stood under her windows, sometimes just left notes in her mailbox. He called, at first often, then less so, but he didn't give up. His messages were short, sometimes desperate, sometimes restrained. "Grace, please let me explain. I'm not the person you think I am right now. I've made mistakes, but with you everything is real." Grace read these messages but didn't reply. She couldn't. There was too much pain, resentment, and disappointment inside her. She remembered Maya, remembered her own advice, her confidence that she was in control. Now all of it seemed naive and empty. One evening she saw Leo outside her building. He was standing in the rain, soaked, his face tired, but his gaze just as stubborn. "Grace," he said quietly when she finally came out. "I know you don't want to see me, but I have to tell you the truth." She was silent, her hands shoved deep in her pockets. "With Maya, I was different. I wasn't looking for anything serious, I was selfish. I'm not proud of it. But with you it's different. I can't stop thinking about you. I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to lose you because of my past." Grace looked at him for a long time, not knowing what to say. Inside, everything was in turmoil. Hurt, fear, the desire to believe. "I need time," she finally said. "I don't know." Leo nodded, accepting her words. "I'll wait," he replied quietly. "As long as it takes." He left, leaving her alone on the dark street. But for the first time in a long while, Grace didn't feel emptiness but a faint hope that maybe, just maybe, it was still possible to start over. Time passed slowly. Grace's days blurred together. Walks in the park, books, rare meetings with Alice. She was learning to live without constant approval from others, without the need to be strong and flawless. Sometimes it felt like she was dissolving in the silence, but gradually something new appeared within her. Calm. She thought about Leo, remembered his laughter, their endless conversations, the lightness he brought into her life. But she also remembered the pain and disappointment. She tried to understand. What mattered more, the past or what was real between them? One morning, waking up early, Grace suddenly realized she was no longer afraid. She didn't have to be perfect, didn't have to prove anything to anyone. She just wanted to be honest with herself and with the one she loved. That same day, she dialed Leo's number. Her heart pounded as he answered. "Grace." There was hope and caution in his voice. "Hi," she said softly. "Can we meet?" "Of course. Anywhere, anytime." They met at the same cafe where it all began. Leo arrived early, nervously fiddling with his coffee cup. When Grace walked in, he stood up, as if he couldn't believe she'd really come. "Thank you for agreeing," he said. "I've been thinking a lot," Grace admitted, sitting across from him. "About you, about myself, about how easily we both hid behind masks. I made mistakes. But I don't want to live in fear and resentment anymore." Leo looked at her intently, not interrupting. "I wasn't honest with myself either," he finally said. "I was afraid to be vulnerable, afraid of being left again. But with you, for the first time, I wanted to be real." They sat in silence for a long time, just looking at each other. There was no awkwardness in that silence, only understanding. "I don't know what will happen next," Grace said. "But I want to try. No games, no blogs, no advice from others." Leo smiled, genuinely, without his usual bravado. "Me too," he replied. "Let's start over. Just you and me." Grace nodded, and for the first time in a long while, she felt she was making the right choice. For herself, not for anyone else's expectations. They left the cafe together, not holding hands but knowing. Now there was nothing extra between them. Only honesty, trust, and a chance for a new real love. After that meeting, Grace and Leo didn't rush back to their old lives. They learned to be together again. Slowly, without expectations, without fear of making mistakes. Sometimes it was hard. The past reminded them of itself, doubts arose, but now they didn't run from conversations, but shared their feelings honestly. Grace no longer wrote a love blog. She found a job at a small publishing house, where she could do what she truly loved: read manuscripts, help authors bring their stories to life. In the evenings, she walked with Leo through the city, discussed books, movies, dreams of travel. Leo changed too. He stopped chasing approval and success at any cost. Instead, he started working with young startups, helping them not just with advice but with real support. He no longer hid his weaknesses, and that only made him stronger. A year passed. Grace and Leo didn't become the perfect couple from glossy magazines. They argued, made up, learned to trust and forgive. But now they knew. Real love isn't a game, a tactic, or a social media image. It's honesty, vulnerability, and the willingness to be yourself. Grace no longer wrote love advice. She simply lived and loved. And Leo finally allowed himself to be not a guru, but just a man who could feel. Their happiness was quiet but real. And that was the most important thing. This story is not just about the love between two modern people, but a deep reflection on how important it is to be honest with yourself and with those around you. Grace and Leo are characters of our time. They are used to hiding behind masks, playing roles, and being afraid to show vulnerability. But only after going through mistakes, disappointments, and inner changes were they able to find true closeness and realize that happiness is not a perfect picture, but the ability to be yourself and accept another person as they are. In this story, everyone can recognize a part of themselves. Some will see their own fears, others, their mistakes, and some, the hope that everything can be started over. It reminds us that real love is built not on perfect actions, but on honesty, forgiveness, and the ability to truly listen to each other. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like, write in the comments what you think about the characters and their choices, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new and interesting stories. Your opinion is very important to us. Let's discuss it together.